Not a matter of if, but when crisis will rock your world. I'm Roshini Rajkumar, crisis strategist, licensed attorney, and host of The Crisis Files. In each case file, we go beyond the headlines to get at the crisis behind the story. You might say the world is in a crisis of facts, a crisis of what and who to believe from sources whose reputations used to be ironclad. John Blackshaw is a public affairs and brand transformation specialist. His work involves strategizing through the noise. John is here for the case file I call Fact Attack. John, you are no stranger to politics, public relations, crisis strategy. Right now, not many public figures or major corporations seem to be getting it right. Part of the reason is because we are struggling between facts and alternative facts.
Yeah, that's right. And it is a fact crisis, if you will. And it even extends beyond is that we're really struggling as a community, as a world to define what is truth. Is the truth here? And I think over years culturally, we've come to this idea that my truth is what I want what I want to believe my truth is, just regardless of what the facts may be. And that became, like I said, it became sort of a cultural thing, and it's sort of permeated now across all sectors of whether it be business, politics, social settings, and it's really troublesome because I think a lot of the disruption in where the world is at is because people have decided that they'll make up whatever their truth is, and it then becomes facts. I don't know if you remember this several years ago, and this is not the only reason, but it's a really good example of the politics. There's something that developed called alternative facts, and it really sort of shifted the idea that, okay, a fact is not a fact. There may be a different fact, which is, and now it's sort of colloquialism for it's, based in misinformation. But it really has kind of taken hold that certainly in the political world, you see it more, that people aren't talking truth. They're talking their own facts, their own truth.
And a lot of us would call that opinion. So as an ex-TV reporter myself, but now definitely an opinion person. But when I was a reporter, there were facts. And we tried to get as many of the facts from all the different sides of a story as possible. And even today, the good journalists are doing that. The problem is there are a lot of journalists at reputable organizations that are also working alongside people that really do believe in those facts, that are ironclad, that you can hang to dry, they can get wet, but they are always the facts. So people really are not understanding the definition of opinion. That's my opinion as to part of where this alternative facts has grown, because what gets mixed into that sometimes it would be political persuasion, religious beliefs, where we are geographically, different parts of the United States, different parts of the world, and then all of a sudden there's a set of facts. And that's when we get into trouble.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I do think that there has to be a distinction made. And it's a responsibility of people to say, this is my opinion based upon whatever the facts are. But we do need to come back to what is facts. And you mentioned how the news media has sort of operated. We've gotten into this, and it's long been a tradition of my observation of how journalism or the media has worked, is they present a situation as he said this, she said this. You guys decide. Well, actually, I don't think that is the role of journalism.
Yeah.
I think if somebody says it's raining outside and someone says, no, it's not, it's the reporter's responsibility to go outside and find out if it's raining.
And say, it actually is raining.
Yeah. But we don't do that enough anymore. There's such a, I think the folks, at least the news media, is so conscious of trying to be, well, we're not one-sided or the other-sided, so we might as well just give you what one side is saying, what the other side is saying, and you decide. And I think that's really I think it's a dereliction of duty, if you will.
Right. It's a dereliction of duty. It's a disservice to the public, to the consumers of the news. But one of the things you've said, which I think is so poignant, and we've heard this from others, but I love that you believe this. It's okay to say, I don't know.
Oh.
So if you are a person in a public figure, a celebrity, just someone that's well known, or a reporter, and let's say you're out doing an interview, you toss it back to the anchor desk, and one of them asks you a question. I know it's a tough thing in that position, but you can kind of put a bow on the I don't know by saying, you know what, we don't have that bit of information yet. Let me get back to you on that.
Yeah.
Or something else. But to be able to say, even in common conversation, if we step away from news media for a bit, it's so good when you're just having conversations with your neighbors, your friends, your colleagues, to be able to say, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a yes, and it's become also culturally permissible to fight back. You always have to sort of, no, that's not what I believe. That's not what I have. Where it comes at the I don't know, though, is really important for, and you probably run into this a lot because you deal with crisis a lot, and I deal with a fair amount of crisis too. Organizations always come to this point in dealing with whatever a crisis is. What do we say and how do we say it, right? What do we say? And a lot of companies say, well, we don't know enough. So let's just say no comment. And I think that's a really not a great way of you're leaving people without information.
Well, no comment, they can then fill in the blank and create your narrative for you.
Create their own narrative. And so I always tell clients that it's okay to say, you know what, we don't know all the facts right now, but we're gathering them and we'll share them with you when we get them. It's far better for that. And it puts the media in a position when they're reporting on it to say, you know, here's what we're gathering. They don't know yet.
Right.
And
this ex-CEO or sheriff, this doesn't have all that information. We are going to get it as soon as they get it to us. There are so many ways to do this smoothly.
Yeah.
And to put that bow on the I don't know, so it doesn't seem like you're ignorant or you're not doing your job.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we don't have all the facts. When I think about a story, and I had my Sunday radio show at the time, over the course of 9 years, toward the end of that duration, Kobe Bryant died in that just tragic crash. And there were so many things spewing, John. And, you know, I was live on the radio as this was happening. And you have to be very careful. And even though I was a talk show host at the time, still am, but I had to remember my reporter hat. We don't, even when we're opinion people, we have to get the facts straight before we put them out onto the airwaves.
It's very true. The other thing that I think we're really struggling with as a larger community of people is that we have now given permission, and it's rightly so. Everybody now is a journalist, and everybody is able to interpret the facts, if you will, by what they see through their camera or what they see.
Put up that phone camera.
Right. And oftentimes it's good things. We had a couple murders here in the state of Minnesota, and people were able to witness them and see that the initial response by some of the people, by our government, wasn't exactly true. And they've had to correct some of it, and some of they haven't. But so that's a good thing. But the problem is then you have evildoers that are out there intentionally misrepresenting whatever the facts are, and it has created this environment that you don't know what the truth is. You don't know if, in fact, the newspaper that you were reading and that you relied on, because you've been told that newspaper doesn't tell the truth. And so we've created this environment that you can't believe anything you're reading or seeing. You got to go and find it yourself. And so people fall into these traps of only watching news and only consuming things that meet their particular belief system, right, wrong, or otherwise.
Right, regardless of the facts. So one of the things, because you are a PR pro, one of my challenges as an ex-journalist or former journalist, is the concept of attribution has almost gone out the window. In my decade on air in television news, we had to get confirmation of the facts, but we also had to attribute it to who told us that. We couldn't say a source says this or an anonymous person inside the mayor's office says this. We actually had to attribute it to a real person. I believe that is part of the demise of the respect for journalism. The other is what I'm going to call the conglomeratization of news organizations. So there used to be so many more independent ownership of newspapers, magazines, television stations, radio stations. But think about it. Disney owns ABC. How many times do I watch? And I like ABC News quite a bit. Peter Jennings to this day is, to me, the best news anchor ever. They own Disney. How many times do we see stories about those products? And even if I want to go see those Disney movies or go to a theme park, the fact is Disney owns ABC News. Unless those journalists are very, like, they don't even care and they just go about and do their business, there's always going to be a bit of a taint.
Yeah, and it is. You mentioned attribution and getting sources. And that's true. I think most of that is because the speed of the way news is shared now. You got to, if you wait 2 minutes past your competitor in getting the story out, you're behind.
Yeah, you were scooped.
And that a lot of that has to do with just the speed of technology and what we've created. You raise an interesting point, though, on the conglomerates taking over our news media and how much they influence what it is that we consume, whether it be news or otherwise. But in this case, news. And I think you see that playing out at a national level in a couple different ways. One is a good example of what's happened at the Washington Post. Jeff Bezos bought it. He wasn't a sort of a guy that was steeped in news. He was an entrepreneur, made lots of money. He was very, very successful. Also went into space and things like that. If you take it from the reporter standpoint, he's ruining the publication because he is changing the way the news is told through the Washington Post that does have a particular viewpoint, his viewpoint. You see it happening at CBS TV.
See it happening, frankly, anywhere. I mean, those are two examples, but it's happening anywhere. It's happening everywhere. In February 2026, we saw a lot of the Washington Post newsroom get laid off, lose their jobs, however you want to put it. There just wasn't money. I mean, so that whole business model of the print that's trying to capitalize on the digital, and no one's really completely figured it out. So, but it is also partly, it's not even just the entities, John. Some of it is we have so many options as consumers. And frankly, the generations that are coming up under us of all ages are turning more and more to multiple sources or to digital sources. And they have no idea what to hold a print paper. I mean, it's really amazing. I mean, one example, recently I saw a video of someone from Gen X, my generation, asking, it might have even been younger than a Gen Z, if she knew who Garth Brooks was. And she had a quizzical face. She had no idea who Garth Brooks was. And I think there are a lot of people that would be stunned by that. But there's probably a lot of people watching this that would agree, who's Garth Brooks? So that's kind of that reality check about some of what we hold on to. The Washington Post, believe me, I mean, it is amazing. I will always remember long past I left TV News, started my business maybe about 10, 12 years into my business. And I went to the Washington Post and Marty Barron was the editor. Mm-hmm. And I met him. One of my friends was a copy editor there. She gave me a tour of their souped up building. This is all pre-Jeff Bezos. And she said, do you want to meet Marty? And I said, absolutely. Because Spotlight had just come out, the story of when he was at the Boston Globe. I mean, he's like an icon to me and to many people. And he recently put out, a very sad editorial about the demise of his he calls the demise. So I'm going to say I'm going to attribute it to him because I haven't looked into it enough. What I hope is that it's a watershed moment. I want the Washington Post to survive. I want journalism to survive. And I want those who are left to continue to do good journalism.
Yes, I agree 100%. I think going back to your original point, was the unbelievable amount of sources that we have to be able to consume media. Layer into that now is AI, artificial intelligence, which is a whole nother world of truth or not truth, facts
Fakes
or
and
nothing.
deep fakes.
Yes, and so that's the biggest issue I think AI is struggling with. Well, not the biggest. There's a lot of them, but is understanding that what AI is giving you may or may not be truth. It's taken as truth, but there's there's always a high degree of reliability on it. But their models aren't built on giving you truth or not. Their models are built on giving you, here's what's out there, and they pull it into their algorithm and give you a result of whatever the query
And their
asked.
models are also built on getting eyes. Getting your
Absolutely.
eyeballs, possibly to click, possibly to buy something. I mean, it is all of that. So let's do a little future casting,
All right.
John Blackshaw.
All right.
What do you see as we sit here in the first half of 2026? What do you see in the years to come? Positives as well as negatives when it comes to facts.
I'm an optimist. So I actually do think that we're slowly getting there, because I think there are a lot of people that are standing up and saying, no, here's what the facts are, and we've got to get this right. And I think that a lot of people are calling out deep fakes when they're a deep fake. So there has been a lot of self-policing and correction, particularly on the social media platforms. So I'm hopeful that we'll continue down that path. I don't think, nor do I want necessarily, to be a centralized sourcing for our media moving forward.
Agreed.
I think that that's a really dangerous thing. So I like the fact that we have a bunch of different sources.
And I recommend that people choose among, consume things you normally don't consume. Get into that on a regular basis. Stick with some of your faves. I mean, I think my husband, I'm driving him crazy in the morning when I'm eating my breakfast because I'm switching back and forth. I'm seeing what everyone has. I read the Wall Street Journal. I read the local paper. I'm online. I'm on X. I get a lot of headlines on X, and then I click in and read those articles. Not everyone has all that, is so focused on that. But just pick a few from different locations so that you're getting a variety of perspectives that then hopefully you can discern.
The challenge, I think, going forward is I do think this idea, at least on the social platforms, where almost anybody can infiltrate and become a player on that platform. I don't know how we're going to necessarily wrap our arms around bad influences that come in, particularly the overseas sort of actors.
And things that, because we have the internet, because we have AI, I don't even understand all of those things. And
Right.
People are just getting in. Those who know how to use it are infiltrating. You're absolutely right. And we have to really be vigilant, because what I don't want is that we stop talking with each other.
Correct.
We just go into our own homes or our own shells or just in our small little circle. That's what I don't want to happen.
I agree. The other thing I don't want to see happen is that, and I'll use this as an example because it's been an issue for a little while, is Facebook. It's been shown definitively that there has been a lot of fake stuff that's put out on Facebook. But I'm also of the opinion, I don't want Mark Zuckerberg to be the one that's necessarily
the gatekeeper.
Deciding what's true or what's not true. So there is a big tension there in terms of how we correct this. And maybe it's just a matter of all of us being vigilant and saying, let's get back to what fact is and truth and defining what it is. It's a long haul. I mean, I think we got a lot of confusion and a lot of sort of figuring this out before we really get some sort of collective. But I will say this, and I'm a true believer in this. I do think it is up to our elected and civic leaders to be able to be more forceful about defining what the facts are.
And really being clear.
And being clear about it. I do think that's a responsibility.
And demanding of their teams and their communities that only the facts come out. Only the facts are posted in various places, and they're checked and double checked before they're released to the broader media.
Yes, I agree. The tension is going to become particularly with elected leaders, they see things a lot of times, most of the times, through a political lens. And so they're always going to, and I have been a practitioner in politics for a long time, you spin it whatever situation is to make it most favorable to what your point of view is or your position is. And so I think there needs to be some reform in that area in terms of what is allowable spin, in terms of spreading too much misinformation.
Well, that's a really cool concept. What is allowable spin? We'll have to follow that up in a future episode with you, John. Yeah, it's great. Well, really good stuff. Thanks for being hopeful, but also being real. Connect directly with John Blackshaw on LinkedIn. Today's case file is powered by Spoke 612 Productions. Spoke 612 Productions takes your ideas and brings them to life. Linda, Sarah, and Matt are committed to excellence and inclusivity. As a WeBank certified women-owned production company, Spoke 612 inspires awareness and delivers impact through storytelling. When you put your project in their hands, Spoke 612 draws on their own talents and experience to ensure they tell the best possible version of your story. Visit their portfolio at spoke612.com. Rate, review, and subscribe to The Crisis Files on your platform of choice. Follow us on YouTube and Instagram at The Crisis Files. Visit thecrisisfiles.com for all 4 seasons of the show. I'm Roshini Rajkumar. Join me next time on The Crisis Files.